Hey, Cross Culture. Look, I'm really excited about what we're going to be doing here with this whole YouTube thing and teaching you through it. And I'm excited about the opportunities that it presents in the future. But I'm more excited about going through the book of Exodus. Going through the book of Exodus and doing this whole video thing, you're going to need to look out for a couple of things. We're going to be going over some key facts. You're going to want to look for those because I'm going to be asking you on Sunday. You're going to be looking for the questions that I'm going to be asking you because the rest of the video should be up a little bit sooner than Friday or Saturday, so you'll have some time to think about it and contemplate it throughout the week. But with those questions, what we're going to do is when we get together on Sunday mornings in Sunday school is we're going to be using those discussion questions, and we're going to then get together in our groups, in our small groups, and discuss those questions and how they apply to us and some of the things that maybe it brought to our mind or to memory, and then kind of take it from there. So with that being said, we're going to be covering a lot of the just kind of background of information with the book of Exodus, and then next week we'll get right into the different lessons. So I'm excited about it. Hope you're with me. Let's get going. Exodus, it is the second book of the Bible, and it is often referred to as the sequel to Genesis. Now, if you remember in Genesis, we finished off our last study, going through the life of Joseph. In a quick recap of Joseph:
dysfunctional family, dreams from God, they hate him for it. Brothers end up selling him to slavery. He goes down to Egypt, he gets bought by Potiphar, he gets accused of rape, he gets thrown into prison, and he starts explaining the dreams that other prisoners have.
God then raises him up into a place of prominence.
Joseph then saves the entire nation of Egypt and those surrounding nations from famine. Millions of people would have probably died if it wasn't for Joseph listening to God and God working through Joseph. And at the end of Genesis, a couple things happen.
Joseph
reunites with his brothers. He forgives them. He reunites with his father.
His
father and his family all the way to Egypt. And that's important because that move then represents the nation of Israel that we see here in Exodus that are then trying to leave Egypt. But he takes them back into Egypt, and then the end of Genesis, you see Joseph leaving the scene. Joseph dies. And then right from
end of the book of Genesis to the beginning of the first words of the book of Exodus
is 350 years.
That's a long time. 350 years, if you think about it, to our country, that was like 50 years after the Mayflower landed here in America. So you're thinking 1680. That's a long time. We were in the colonies, part of Britain, and we were still having all these other issues. Like, that's a long time removed. So 350 years have passed between the end of Genesis and the beginning of Exodus, and boom, that's where we're at, and that's what we're going to be getting into next week. But we're going to be covering a lot of supernatural events.
The water being turned into blood, the burning bush, the Red Sea parting, the nation of Israel walking through on dry ground, the death angel that goes through Egypt and kills the firstborn of every family that does not have the blood of the lamb spread upon the doorposts.
Our staffs turn into snakes, talking about leprosy. We're going to see God fight head to head with the gods of Egypt. We're going to be covering a lot of different things. Some of the other highlights that we will be talking about, which you should be paying attention to, is the fact that we are covering the Ten Commandments, giving of the law. You have the Mosaic Covenant. That's a pretty important covenant. You have the tabernacle. You have Moses talking with God. The tribe of Israel turns into a nation of Israel. You have a lot of these things going and taking place. And if you don't know about the significance of these things that we're talking about, then that's why it's extremely exciting for you, because we're going to find out why. There's a couple big players that I want you to remember as we're going through the book of Exodus. One of them being Israel. Israel's a big player. The second person being
God.
I mean, kind of a really big player.
And then third is Egypt. Israel, Egypt, God. Those are the three players that I want you to be paying attention to, that I want you to remember, and I'll be asking you on Sunday. Besides that, we have minor characters and things like that. When I say minor, I'm
talking about Moses and Aaron and the other leaders after him. So they're not really minor, but you get what I'm talking about.
There's an even larger idea of why we're going through the book of Exodus. And it's this. When you look at life, there are
philosophies all over
that try to explain away our life and what we should be doing with it.
You have Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Islam, the naturalistic idea. You have the evolutionary idea. You have the atheistic idea.
You have all of these ideas fighting for your attention. From the Christian perspective, we have the answers because God himself gave them to us. And this is what I want you to pay attention to, some of these statements. You can have freedom, which we have freedom, but freedom without law, you've kind of got a license to do anything. If you have the freedom to do whatever the heck you want, and yet you don't have any kind of a law to restrain you, then you have a license to do whatever you want. And that can be a very scary thing. And then you also have the idea of responsibility. But responsibility without freedom is bondage. You see where the two are coming together? If you have responsibility but no freedom, well, then you're right back in the middle of where the nation of Israel was in the first place, and you're back in slavery. So we don't want that. We're going to be talking about that. But then you take those two things together, responsibility and freedom, and you put them together. What's the purpose? By that, I mean this. When you are responsible with your freedom and say you're helping the poor, you're helping your family, you're helping those that are starving, you're helping those that are sick, etc., all those different things, what's the purpose? What is the purpose of doing that? What is the ramifications and the reward system? What are the consequences of doing good? And we find that in Exodus. We find freedom with the nation of Israel leaving Egypt. We find responsibility with them going to Mount Sinai and Moses coming back with the Ten Commandments and all the other laws that God gives to the nation of Israel. And then we also have the reward system of God telling the nation of Israel, I will be a God unto you, and you will be my people. And then he says, there's some things that you need to do, and if you do these things, then XYZ will happen. If you don't, XYZ will happen. And so you have the freedom, you have the responsibility, and you have the reward system. And that's a lot of times what we're trying to figure out. The world is trying to figure out is how to mend those three different things into our life. So with that being said, I want you to think about these two questions, or actually four questions, but they're two questions that I want you to pay attention to, and we're going to be talking about on Sunday.
Number one.
What responsibilities do you have in your household right now? Answer this. What happens when you
Don't.
follow through with those responsibilities?
The second question that I want to ask you then
Is what responsibilities do you have as a Christian? Not just as a person, but what responsibilities do you have as a Christian? And then akin to that is what happens when you don't follow through with those responsibilities. Hopefully you'll be thinking about those this week and you have an answer. I'm looking forward to us coming together on Sunday, and I love you guys. I will see you soon. Bye. You're going to have to help me because I'm not used to this whole videoing thing. And this thing here, yeah, it wasn't plugged in for that whole first video. So, my bad.